All right, welcome in. It's a very special edition of the Bleav in Georgia Dogs podcast on the Bleav Network, presented by betonline.ag. A guest that you probably would think two football coaches would never have in their existence of the Bleav in Georgia Dogs podcast. It's Jenna Becerra, host of the Bleav in Softball podcast right here on this Bleav Network. Jenna, how are you doing?
I'm good. I mean, it is only one game in. Watching the second game, secret have it on mute, just over outside of the screen right now, watching it. But it's good. Supers are fun. Postseason's fun. Mayhem is one of the best times of year.
Oh, you already know. And on the other side of the screen there is Mr. Israel Troop. Israel, what's going on, dude?
What's up, man? This is like Jenna said, this is a big exciting time for me as well. I love the softball College World Series, so I literally watch every single game. So this is definitely an exciting time for softball right now.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, if you're a Georgia fan, you're probably a little nervous right now. But before we get into all that, like I said, we are presented by betonline.ag. It is got everything you need with your sports wagering needs, live odds, games, casino card games. I'm a blackjack guy myself, Jenna. I don't know about you. I don't know if you're into card games or casino games, but I'm definitely a blackjack guy. You could probably bet on these softball games. Probably wise to take Florida State here, unfortunately for us. But again, if you want to get on betonline.ag, either head to the website or get on your mobile device and join. Use that promo code Bleav, BLEAV, to get that 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Well, just right as you popped on, right as we all popped on here, Georgia fell in Tallahassee to Florida State in the Super Regional Game 1, 8-1. Let's kind of talk about the game itself, what Georgia needs to do to claw their way back into this thing, what to look for in game 2, hopefully, for Georgia against Florida State. Jenna, what's happening with this series?
Well, I think this was actually one of the most interesting super regionals that we were all looking forward to this weekend, just because the styles and the strengths of both of these teams, Florida State and Georgia, are a little bit different. For Florida State, they're very pitcher heavy. Their ace, Catherine Sandercock, who got in tonight, threw a perfect game at the end of regionals last weekend. So she's in a good space. She's on a roll. But on the other hand, Georgia is number 3 country in terms of home runs. And we did see a solo shot tonight. There wasn't anyone on base to make that hurt a little bit more. And I think it was the situational hitting, Georgia. Yeah. There were some opportunities, and head coach Tony Baldwin talked about this in the in-game interview, where there were some opportunities that they could have capitalized and maybe they didn't. So I think it's not always just the hits. Georgia's got 6 players who are hitting over 300. They're hitting 322 as a team coming into this weekend, like this split, right? But it's not just getting the hits. It's when you get them. It's capitalizing at the right time.
Situational things. Yeah. It just seems that nobody could really get on base, or it seemed like when they would, they'd get stranded. Like, yeah, it can be frustrating at times, right?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. And that's the nature of it.
A wonderful game of baseball and or softball. It's one of those deals where, all right, we got runners on, we can definitely get these people over and score in position, and something bad happens. It's just being aware of everything that's going on. I love it. At least it's better than baseball sometimes. Everybody's swinging for the fence. At least these young ladies have can figure it out and at least try to put the ball in play. And this is coming from a baseball guy.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pro both sports, but obviously I don't know what my bias leans me towards.
Yes. And we'll get into that a little bit more. We're going to get to know Jenna here as we go. We're going to talk about this series now. Game 2, setting up game 2. I noticed looking at the pitching stats, it seems to be very even split as far as how the pitchers are going. Is that kind of a normal thing in softball, or is there sometimes where you get a pitcher go a complete game, or what's kind of the norm when it comes to pitching?
It used to be that you'd have one ace that you would really ride the entire season. It used to be kind of the metric or the path to success, really, for some of these teams, especially when you have someone super talented. But now with all the technology over the that has developed for hitting and all the film that's out there and all the data that they now have access to. There's just been such a spread of information, and even just that technology is better and different, so they're hitting the ball farther as well. And athletes in general are just bigger, stronger with the improved strength and conditioning that has occurred across sports over the years. So I think now it's become necessary to have an entire pitching staff. By committee is definitely now the norm. And we see why. I mentioned it. Georgia's number 3 in the country in terms of home runs. They have 92 this season. It'd be hard for one pitcher to go up against them multiple times. Yeah, exactly.
And to throw a perfect game against that, it's insane.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I got a question. I was just wondering, does softball have I guess it'd be a pitching clock as well? Kind of like baseball. I saw it, this weekend with the SEC tournament, you kind of see the clock kind of on the left-hand side of the screen. Does softball have one of those as well?
You're hitting on a hot topic here. They don't.
Should
so softball doesn't. But, it's a huge conversation now. And one of the things people like about softball, and if you are going to compare it to baseball, right, is the speed of the game and how quickly it moves. That's just something that people have been really attracted to. But with certain things that have changed in regards to pitching, meaning there are more pitchers. So there's more pitchers warming up because more pitchers are coming into the games, right? That takes longer. They have this sort of like arm guard where they have a chart on their arm, and that's how they're getting the signals versus kind of the old school numbers that the catchers might give them, things like that. It takes more time. So with that being said, people are like, if we want to stick with the essence of softball, which is the quick movement of this game, then maybe we should implement a clock. So it is a hot topic right now.
Oh, go ahead, Cor.
No, you had it, man. I was just going to say something random, but
like you said with the armband, we used them in high school whenever we played, and ours was fairly quick. But you kind of see, with Florida State, their head coach calls the pitches. So, it kind of takes her a while. She writes on a pad, and then she calls the pitches, instead of, all right, let's call the pitch first. And then I write, whatever I need to. So, softball is still moving fairly quickly, so in my opinion, they don't need a clock. But at the same time, you do see some teams, take a long time of looking at the wristband, or looking at the coach, which kind of, slows the game down a little bit.
Is there a little gamesmanship behind that?
There has been. I mean, there have been some moments this year too, where people are kind of like making a pitching change to eat up time. Because, for example, if people have a drop dead time where they have to travel, let's say it's Sunday for a series that you're playing, and they have to leave by a certain time to make their flight as a team, you have to play at least 5 innings for a game to count, first of all. So you have to get at least 5 innings in. But with that being said too, if you play like 4.5, but the home team doesn't get to hit, you have to revert back to the previous inning. So sometimes people will be, I'm going to bring in a new pitcher right now just to eat up some time to try to push it to we actually have to revert back to the last inning. So there have been some moments that season where people have been like, oh, come on, just keep playing. But you can see that strategy from the coaches.
Yeah, just kind of also if a team gets in a groove, just to kind of break up some of that rhythm. Also, I could see that very easily.
That too. Yep, definitely.
It's like falling, a fake injury in football. You just kind of fall. But unfortunately for them, the clock stops. It doesn't keep going.
Yeah. That's right. And it's just for baseball and softball, those type of things just kind of eat into the time. And unfortunately on baseball side, it's 9 innings. So you got to kind of get through that. I love that softball 7 innings, and I love that high school baseball is 7 innings, and it makes it go by so much quicker, and the innings are a lot more impactful, I think. So maybe baseball should adopt that. I don't know. Just thinking out loud.
Softball's it's way more exciting to watch than football on TV. Just in my opinion, I can't sit here and watch a game, in its full, just baseball, but I can watch a whole softball game, because you can see, the excitement, even the commentators, they're not talking about hot dogs and what their dog ate, for dinner. It's all about the game and the players. And that's one thing, if the commentators for baseball did that, then it will be a lot more exciting to watch.
Yeah.
And they have more time to fill. So that's hard, in between, I do baseball and softball, and there's way more time to fill for baseball. So it is easier to kind of maintain that high energy when there's as much fluff maybe that you have to work into the conversation.
No doubt. So game 2, set us up, Jenna. Game 2, what needs to happen? Who's pitching for Florida State in game 2? Is it going to be kind of the same deal, same look, or what does Georgia need? I mean, obviously Georgia needs to get more people on base, right?
Certainly. I mean, of course, that's where it starts, right? It's like let's make some adjustments from an offensive perspective to get on base, and then let's try to capitalize in those moments that maybe we didn't capitalize on previously. But it's tough. It is tough because 81% of the teams in game 1 in super regionals move on to the Women's College World Series. Mm-hmm. So when you lose that first one, it's tough. Now, I will say this is from someone who won the first game twice, my freshman year and my junior year, and eventually we lost and did not go to the World Series. So it doesn't mean it's not possible to be able to come back and do it, but it's very tough. I think for Florida State, because they have one under their belt, they might not need to throw their ace. They might not need to throw Catherine Sandercock in to start, but I'm sure she'll be ready to come in because clearly she had some success against Georgia tonight. So maybe they try to get away with someone else for some innings, and they have McKenna Reed as well that's available, who's been a great freshman addition for them. So maybe they'll bring her in, and then they'll have Sandercock ready to potentially close.
Well, they're going to have to. Georgia's going to have to figure out a way to get Sydney Chamblee cranked up. She's been mashing. I mean, she personally wrecked Virginia Tech in the regionals, and she's a lot of fun to watch at the plate. Just seeing her crush the ball is a thing of beauty.
Oh yeah,
that's the thing too, and yeah, those types of hitters too. And what was it? Home runs in the regionals alone. We're not even talking about the rest of the season, right?
And one of those was a grand slam, I believe, too. So talk about situational.
Exactly, because those are some of this. Yes, those are the stats that I think, and I like to bring up during broadcast too. They're the most interesting. Like, okay, here's your batting average, but what's your average when runners are scoring position? What's your average when runners are on base? Right, like those types of things get really, really interesting.
Yeah, no doubt.
Okay, you come to some of our parents sometimes because our parents don't understand that, when it comes to baseball. They're like, well, they're batting this. I'm like, well, what are they doing? What are they doing? Runners on base? Are they actually getting on base? Are they putting the ball in play? My big thing, and me and Corey talk about all the time, because we're hoping that Georgia baseball can get over the hump as well because of the success of softball. But one thing that we don't do is put the ball in play. That's one thing for me. Where runners are scoring position or just moving runners, just put the ball in play.
Yes.
And I go back to this with softball. You don't see big, long hacks, try to hit the ball. You see short, sweet swings, but everybody else is, the head's going this way or first pitch changeup, first pitch curveball they're swinging at. Happened in the Florida Alabama game last night. Just awareness of, if I get this pitch, I'm swinging. If I get anything else, I'm not swinging. And that's one thing that, that I admire about softball. They have a plan when they go to the plate. And that's one big thing for me is having a plan when you step in the batter's box.
And there's no chess matches either in baseball, at least with Georgia. It's just, hey, let's just see how far I can hit this ball. And I don't really have a rhyme or reason why I'm going to swing. I'm just going to swing out of my shoes and try to put this thing into the tennis courts beyond left field. But one thing I love about softball too, and this is me fanboying out about softball apparently, but I like the creativity of it. I like that any pitch can go any part of the park, and the object is to score runs any way possible. And I love the creativity of the sport. I wish baseball had more of that. The Tony Gwynn method. Tony Gwynn was one of the greatest hitters of all time. There was not a spot in the ballpark that he wouldn't put a baseball. And there was a stat with him where you had, I think it was like Glavine, Smoltz, Greg Maddux, Pedro Martinez struck out 12,000 batters. They only struck out Tony Gwynn 3 times.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's another stat to look at, is how many strikeouts do they have versus how many times they're putting the ball in play. Like to your point earlier too, Israel, like, that's interesting to look at. Or how many walks are people getting, because sometimes the batting average might be a little bit lower, but you take a look at the on-base percentage and you're like, oh, wow, that's actually, we need base runners. So maybe this is someone we keep in that lineup. And that's the job of the coach, though, is to figure out all of those types of situations.
Yeah, work the count. Yeah. Jenna, you really need to you really need to come to our schools and talk to our players. We're both we're both high school educators. We have a pretty good program where I'm at, softball program. it's gotten a lot better. It's very young too. So, but yeah,
taking pitches also bothers me too. If you just take one, it bothers me so bad to just take the pitch. And now you're down 0-1. And then they take the second pitch and I'm like, swing the bat, swing it.
I am not big on like automatically taking it. Now, if a pitcher has thrown like 10 balls in a row, you're like, okay, maybe we try to be patient here. But as a general rule, exactly. I'm like, no, I mean, if they're for it, but you do have a plan. If it's not a pitch that really like isn't part of your plan, that's one thing. If it's a pitcher's pitch, but if it's there and you get feeling it, why not? That's how I am. Even on 3-0, sometimes I'm like, give them the green light. If they pop up, don't let them do it again, but let them try first time.
Yeah. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Well, I guess the worst that could happen is you could pop out, but, just give them the green light. So I'm all for that too, Jenna.
I can honestly say that's the only time I've shaken off my head coach is when he told me to take, and I'm like, I ain't doing that. You know how you're feeling? You're like, he's going to give me something to hit, or she's going to give me something to hit. So I'm swinging if they give it to me. Like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. No doubt. No chance.
If you get a hit, maybe the coach is fine. We'll see.
Yeah. 3-0, you're getting something grooved, right? So
absolutely.
All right, Jenna, let's get to know you a little bit. Let's get to know your background. You played at Stanford. You were an infielder.
Yep.
Grew up in California. So coming out of high school, right? Westlake High School. At what point while you were in high school did you know, hey, I can do this at the next level and I can do this quite well? Like what was that moment for you?
Yeah, I think probably the first half of high school. And it's interesting because pretty soon, not long after my time in getting recruited, people were, verbally committing in 8th grade. And that was pretty wild. Now they've put some more rules into place where that's not quite as kosher. Like you're not really able to do that as much. But for me, I think it was, first part of high school. And part of that too has to do with grades. Like understanding how you are as a student. I think it's tough to know that when you're in middle school. But for me, like I was interested in places like Stanford. I was in conversations with places like Harvard and Princeton as well. So that obviously matters to be able to even get into the institution in the first place. But it just opens up your options, because even if that's not necessarily, those aren't your dream schools, like if you have the grades, then that is not a limitation for you at all. So it's once you realize like you love it enough to want to keep playing it and doing it every day, because you sell your soul a little bit as a student athlete, it's your job. You have to want to be able to do that. If you feel that passion for it and you have, your foundations pretty set as a student as well, options.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell mine all the time, if you have to be micromanaged in high school, then you should not go play college ball, no matter what sport it is.
It's hard. It's hard. And you're on your own for the first time.
Absolutely. And with you being at Stanford, I mean, I'm pretty sure that your academic, lifestyle was a lot more strenuous than mine when I was at Georgia. So, I could only imagine, the time spent and practice and all that stuff, what you guys had to go through. Because Stanford was not on my top list of places to go simply because of that academic prowess that you guys have over there.
So,
but even so, it's like the time management too, right? Like whether it's, an academic focus, like super focus like that or not, institution, you have to understand and be able to manage your time, so being able to do that in high school to a certain degree to help you prepare for college is important. Yeah, absolutely. Time management in anything you do is, but yeah, especially if you're a student athlete at a school like Stanford. So aside from the obvious, that Stanford is an academic powerhouse, what else about Stanford drew you there? For me, at the time in which I was getting recruited to, the Pac-12 was very, very dominant when it came to softball. Now, currently, it's like 24 out of 40 national championships went to the Pac-12. But at that time, I want to say it was like 23 out of 30, something like that, like insane. Wow. Yeah. So for me, that was a goal. Yeah, that was a goal. I wanted to play in the best conference. And so for me, seeing that and having that academic piece to Stanford, seeing both of those things in the athletic department as well, it felt like a no-brainer once I realized that, like, oh, they actually are interested in me.
Yeah.
But the fact that, the fact that it was also, I'm from Southern California, it was in Northern California, it was kind of that nice distance to where far enough away where I felt like I went away to college. I wasn't home every weekend. Not that that's a bad thing for people, but I wanted the experience of going away a little bit. My parents could still come to my games. My family members would come to games because it was not too tough of a trip. So it worked out for me on a personal level.
Well, there you go.
So how was it? What was it like playing against the UCLAs and the Arizonas of the world during, they were really, really good. They still are really good, but Oklahoma, Florida State, they've kind of, taking the reins of this thing right now. But how was it playing against those teams, when they were at the pinnacle, of pretty much softball during that time?
Awesome. Like, it was great. I think I went actually back to Tucson for the first time since I played Pac-12 tournament because it was hosted at Arizona this year. And they've completely redone the facility to upgraded everything. It was really cool to see just the investment from that perspective, and knowing how much they deserve it as a program just historically. Mike Kendria was the longtime coach, one of the winningest coaches in collegiate softball history. It's Mike Kendria Field now, so it feels right. And with UCLA, it's like especially being from Southern California, it's like you want to play. Yes, so you're watching win the World Series. Like, you want to be able to play and be in those situations. That's why you do it. So I thought it was really fun. Was it hard? Yeah, of course. This is some top competition. I don't know if everyone's batting average was that wonderful in those games, right? But like, it was fun to be able to challenge yourself. And I remember playing UCLA, Lisa Fernandez, who's the GOAT of softball, basically. She's still now the pitching coach there. I had met her. She's the only one I ever had like a starstruck moment with when I was like 10 years old. And I got her autograph at like some UCLA like alum event or something. And then I got to play in the other dugout against her, so those types of things are really, really awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like why people go to the SEC for football right now. And, you want to play against the best, and that's the best. How was Cal during those times? I know that's Stanford's biggest rival, just in general, but is that carry over to softball too, or did that rivalry was geared more towards Arizona because that was the team to beat?
No, they're definitely the rivalry. There always will be, right? Like, there's no escaping that. When it's your main rival across the entire athletic department, you have your own special rivalry, maybe with like the UCLAs and the Arizonas. And for me, one of those super regionals that I mentioned that lost was against Arizona at home. So that hurt, it hurt. But Cal, absolutely. And they were solid. Having a championship, they won in 2002. And they were always very competitive. They went to multiple Women's College World Series too, even didn't really win in the end. And even their head coach now is an alum who was on that national championship team. So I think they're coming back and building up too. And I will give credit to the SEC. I have to, because the investment in the facilities has been huge for the growth of softball. You said it, like Oklahoma, not in the SEC, but like Oklahoma's a big one. Florida State, right? Soon. Florida State's a big one. But really looking at facilities at Alabama and even at Tennessee, and these are fantastic, and that helps the fan base, and that grows the game at the end of the day. So that has been huge for the sport.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our buddy Josh Brooks just got a big pay raise. They just upgraded everything at the softball facility. It is really, really nice over there too. But I do have this question too. I met CJ Spiller this year. He's recruited for Clemson. And I don't get starstruck like when I see actors and things like that. I get starstruck when I see like people I used to watch on TV, like athletes and stuff. So meeting CJ, I was just like, you're CJ Spiller, just kind of looked at him in awe, So what softball player, have you met, you're like, I remember watching you, and you kind of starstruck, I know you mentioned Lisa, and I remember watching her as well, her and Kat Osterman and Jenny Fantz, and them, all them play. But which one did you meet? You're just like, oh my God, you're you. I'm standing right next to you.
Yeah, Lisa's the biggest one. and probably the only one where I literally was speechless, because I remember I was with my friends, my teammates at the time, we were just little 10-year-olds, and I actually was just staring at her and wasn't talking. And they were like, she's really excited to meet you. Like, I promise, that's the only time that's ever happened. But since starting the podcast, like since starting Bleav in softball, I've also gotten to speak to so many other players that I used to watch. Like Natasha Watley was one of my first people I ever interviewed, and she's been on the show now 3 or 4 times. And she's also one of the greatest, and so getting to know them as people has been really cool. I've had Kat Osterman on the show. I've had Monica Abbott on the show. Like some of these people that you mentioned too, like that even people outside of the softball community know who the people are, because they had that big of an impact, So it has been weird every once in a while having like a text or an email from someone where I'm like, oh my gosh, I used to watch you in the Olympics, and now we're just chatting, we're just texting, whatever. So
we're buds now. I kind of have his phone number, You're
going to be a regular on my show, Bleav in softball. So heck yeah. So you're doing color commentary for is it the Pac-12 network now these days?
Yeah. Pac-12 networks. I do color and play-by-play, and also for Stanford athletics too. So a little bit of both.
Okay. So all the above, right? So play-by-play for softball, like it's pretty fast. Like we talked about earlier about how fast the sport is. Covering it play-by-play, how did you get used to it? I guess obviously playing it helps, but like sitting in the booth is a whole different animal. Even if you've played it or not played it, just keeping up with the pace of it, like. What was that learning curve like for you?
Yeah, it's completely different, to your point. There are certain things that you're very instinctual about, right? Mm-hmm. But there are other things where you think about it and it's not something where you show up, right? You have to prepare. How is that different from being an athlete, where you're not just going to show up to a game? No, you're going to practice. You're going to do your diligence. Like maybe it's like, what's the game plan against these pitchers for this other team? Or even looking at film on yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Like, what's my swing looking like right now? Like, doing those types of things for the role of being the broadcaster. And I think for me, I take it really seriously in the sense that like we're telling these women's stories, like this. Mm-hmm. And for some of them, these are some of the biggest moments that they might have in their lives. And like we get to be the ones to deliver that. So I just kind of, when I was able to actually not think of it as something so different and think of it as like, oh, why don't I approach this the way I approach things as an athlete, with that sort of preparation and that kind of mindset, really. Mm-hmm. And then I felt like it became really more natural. And I felt like that's why I loved it so much, is because I'm like, oh, I almost feel like not exactly like an athlete. I'm certainly not going to get out there and like run the bases right now. But, I felt like, okay, yeah, I'm still in the game,
There you go. Now, do you like play-by-play or color more?
I was about to say, do you have
a call sheet
kind of like Bruce Davis?
Yeah. Go with his question first sheet about the big play sheet. Yeah, go with that.
With the names and kind of the sheet with pretty much everything that they need to know. Laminated and everything with pencil marks and everything on it.
Not laminated, only because I have to so many things throughout the game. I just like so I yes, it'd be difficult. Yeah, you got the scorebook, you got everything. It's so much information. And that's what I hope that fans also realize too, is how much prep goes into that for all sports, really. But definitely have it. I hand write a lot of things too, so that can be time consuming, but it does help me kind of remember and like retain the information a little bit, versus having to like look at my sheet for every single thing. It's
intense. It's a lot of information. I don't know that my tiny brain could process all of that. I probably could. I don't know. But that's impressive. It really is. And to jump back and forth between color commentary and play-by-play, do you have a preference over one of those? How challenging is it when you're in the color seat versus the play-by-play seat to kind of switch your brain over?
It's different. Like it's almost like playing a different position, for me, obviously I started with color because that makes the most sense from just an analysis standpoint. If you played, like, what you're talking about from that perspective. So let's translate that, but then as I going, I actually have done quite a few games just by myself, to where you are the play-by-play person and the color person. And I think that actually has helped most. It's tough, right? Being by yourself. It's much more fun when you have someone to talk to and you're like, do I laugh at my own jokes, or we're just
go ahead. Yeah. Just roll with it. Just laugh. Laugh away.
You're like, all Right. Sure.
Yeah.
But it makes you do both, right? And you have to make that adjustment. So I did find myself over time, like when I'd be doing color, where I'd be like almost antsy because I'm like, oh, I'm so excited about telling this story or about this matchup or about this or that I'm like, I kind of want to be the one to lead, So I have started to like play by play more and more, especially if I can do it with another former softball player or a former baseball player. That makes it super fun.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then just being able to be in the driver's seat where it feels like you have a lot more control, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Although being a color person, having a good play-by-play person is awesome too. Like Kate Scott from Pac-12 Network was one of the earlier folks who I got to partner with. Now she's the voice of the 76ers, and so getting to learn from some of these super tenured people is awesome.
Yeah, that's quite the jump too, going from Pac-12 Network to the voice of the Sixers. So yeah, congratulations to her.
This Oklahoma State game's already in the 4th inning, and I'm pretty sure baseball is still in the 1st. It's amazing how that happens.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, see, I'm peeking over. I see we're going to win 1-0 right now. Yeah.
So fast. I love it. So I noticed you majored in communications and the broadcast thing in college. Did your high school have a program like that? I teach this at my high school here in Nashville. So like I'm trying to recruit more girls.
Brings this whole power production and operation. I'm just here, I'm just a body. But without Corey, this don't help.
Well, without Israel, the boat definitely doesn't get out of the port because he brings the credibility of being in the locker room at Georgia. I was just in the recruiting office, but going back to that, I teach production at my high school. Like I said, I'm trying to recruit more girls to my program to get that balance and to let them know that there are avenues like yourself to get into sports broadcasting or broadcasting in general or film or things like that. When did you know that you wanted to do this side of it? Like after your playing days were over, whenever that was, whether it would be high school, college, or if you went to the professional ranks too.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're starting that early. For me, I actually did what's called a co-term. It's like a terminal degree at Stanford. So you basically can stay 1 extra year and get your master's degree if you get into the program. But you could start your master's while you're still finishing bachelor. That's why it's kind of like co-term at the same time.
Yeah.
So for me, it was great. I was like, why would I not do this?
Take full advantage of that. That sounds wow. Okay. UGA, you taking notes on this co-term thing? Yeah. I hope you have it. Cause that is probably, if you want to get people in your master's program, there you go. Co-term.
Yes. 100%. And even with all the grad transfers these days too, like those programs are great to have from that side of things. Yeah. So I started in that 5th year in grad school. The student radio just asked me to join for some games. And I was like, sure. My roommate at the time was one of my classmates who had gotten hurt. So she was still playing that year. And I was like, I'll probably go to a lot of games anyway. Why not? Why not try it? And it was a kind of blend of that passion with, what I'm studying. Cause I was media studies for grad school too. And they didn't have a specific broadcast journalism program at Stanford at the time. So I tried to get as close as possible, sort of with the communication piece, the media studies piece, took some journalism classes that were more focused on writing, but just trying to get my feet wet with it. So to hear that you're doing that in high school is actually really exciting. And you're right. Part of the reason I'm interested in play-by-play more too is because, there aren't as many women in that role, actually. And I think it would be great to increase that, especially in sports specifically. So why not? Why not do that? So that's great. It's almost like getting more women and girls in STEM. We're doing that for this too.
Yeah, definitely. Because like my classes are heavy loaded with boys, which, as you know, can get, at the high school age can get pretty rambunctious. So, for behavior standpoint, also that would, I think, calm that down. But even just getting girls more interested in the film industry, the TV industry, and just knowing that there are avenues there, I think it would open some doors for them, and I think they would enjoy it. I've got this one girl who's going to be a senior. She's kind of like leading the charge right now with that. I have a girl that graduated. She's graduating from Western Kentucky now, actually, with a film degree. So she just had a movie premiere actually not long ago.
That's awesome.
I was really excited about her. Her Her name's Annalise Lytle. If she ever wants to get into sports broadcasting, I'll send her your way. But yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
that's incredible. Just by chance happen to hop on the radio. I like that. Now you're the host of Bleav in softball, and you're doing all this play-by-play stuff on the Pac-12 network. ESPN will come calling, I'm sure, very soon. So I'm excited. I'm excited for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, they have a great roster as it is, especially with the color talent and a lot of former just greats and legends, But if, again, like I said, if I could do play-by-play with some of them on color, that would be the dream.
Yeah, I mean, you're no slouch yourself. I mean, you were all conference honorable mention as a corner infielder at Stanford. So we're that they could add that to their roster as well. So somebody that played in the best conference in America in the early 2010s, it would be incredible for ESPN. So also got to ask this: first or third? Yeah. What is playing the corners in softball? Very scary thing.
It can be if you let it. It's the hot corner for a reason, right? At third base. I mean, yes, like I've had some shots hit at me at the base. I had to choose if that's what you're asking too, like third base, I would choose. And also particularly with softball, when you're trying to defend against slappers. So I know you mentioned creativity in softball. Some of that's that like scrappiness from the slappers as well. Those lefties who are like running already when they're swinging.
I'm a lefty. I would probably be a slapper if I played softball.
Yeah. I mean, those are so fun though, because they're trying to kind of trick you, and it's this cat and mouse game that you have with them. Or are they going to lay down a bunt? Are they going to try to hit it hard past you? Are they going to try to chop something and run it out if they have speed? And that's really fun to me. And of course, the reactions are fun too. If you have something hit at you super hard, like it's really fun to, steal it from someone and be like, nope, not today. But I do think first base is underrated. Like to have an athletic first baseman does make a big difference, especially when you're stretching, when you have like that range, like to support your other infielders. Like I do feel like that's underrated. So I did have to say that too.
Yeah, very underrated.
Yeah. And I'm not a hot corner guy. I'm a middle guy. I'm middle infield. I can't. There's something about that corner, man. It just scares the absolute daylights out of me. Because I mean, you got a split second, when that ball's coming. Especially you get a slap hitter. That just happens to fire one down the line or anything like that. Now y'all can have it. Kudos to you guys who play.
Yeah, very much. Yeah, very much respect. I'm just a measly old outfielder. I played right field, so
last line of defense. That's the last line of defense, though.
I was mowing people down at the plate from right field.
There you go, man.
Get those righties that slice it. Yeah.
Yeah, or even sometimes getting the occasional runner at first base. They think they got a base hit 3-4, and again, not today. Although Israel, I grew up as a shortstop too, and so I did have to like adjust to the corners in college. It's different, and in the summers I'd play on a women's team and go back and forth a little bit, and you're like, okay, yeah, I forgot this is a little bit different, but both are fun, different.
Oh yeah. The worst is trying to remember bunt coverage. You're playing third. And then, you're playing short. Then all of a sudden you're playing second. You're like, all right, where do I go on this particular bunt?
Second is in a lot of ways, at least mentally, harder, I think, than shortstop because you have more coverages. There's more going on. Yeah. And people kind of sleep on that sometimes. But
yeah, if you're a second baseman, I mean, you're a first baseman as well. I mean, you do so much of that one position that people don't even realize it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Very true.
Now, stolen bases in softball. How does stealing work? Yeah, talk to us about stealing bases here.
Well, when you can take off is a little different than baseball. So that I think is first thing to kind of understand. So when you can leave the bag when you're stealing is when the ball is released from the pitcher's hand. So like you have to time it in that way. So it's a little different than, in baseball, they're kind of like starting their wind up or whatever. It's a little different. You don't take a lead off ahead of time either. You have to wait till they release it able to speed. So it's slightly different, but I think there's so much speed in softball. And like I said before, like their athletes are just stroke fast now too, because of the knowledge that there is with strength and conditioning. So they are fast. So people steal a lot, especially those slabs. Like if they're on base with some sort of chop ground ball or a bunt, then they're stealing second. That's ideal. They're already in scoring position. But I love seeing a good caught stealing, like for a catcher to just mow someone down is really fun to watch.
Now, don't lie to me. Both of you, don't lie to me on this. When you see a catcher throw somebody out at second, whether you're watching a baseball game or softball game, Jane's addiction, been caught stealing. If it doesn't play through your head, you're lying.
I'll give it to you. I saw hit from Florida last night, stealing against Alabama. One, the catcher hit the pitcher in the back, which is pretty impressive for you to even do that. And secondly, the worst feeling as a base runner, as a stealer, is when you see that ball cross your face and you haven't even started your slide yet. It's a very painful. Yeah. I've never felt it, but I've seen it happen to people before. And I'm talking about the guy from Alabama smacked the guy from Florida dead in the face. I'm talking about, wow, crossing. He was out by a mile. I was like, that guy feels terrible right now. Now you got Rollins across your face. You're dirty, and you're out. I mean, you just pretty much got trifecta.
And now you got to make that slow trot back to the dugout. And your coach is just waiting on you. Yeah.
Yes, and I don't think he was supposed to steal.
Oh, no.
Because the head man was not happy.
Yeah, that's not a fun conversation to have.
Missed sign. That's a whole other ball game too. But I remember stealing. I was safe. I guess I had that going for me. But I remember stealing, and the shortstop, the throw was actually like kind of inside the bag, so kind of like above me as I was sliding in. It was a little offline, and the shortstop tried to come over to catch it. Right, you're not trying to let that go to the outfield, but stepped on my shin with her cleats, her metal cleats, her spikes, and it was pretty ugly. Like I was sick, I said, but it didn't really feel good to run after that for a little while. I still have scars from it now.
Oh, that's tough. Ooh, that's a bad
Oh man, my shins are hurting just thinking about that right now. That's ouch. Any other stories from your playing days that you look back on and you're like, that was a moment that I'll remember, an interaction that you had with a base runner, one of those fun gamesmanship, trash talk type moments where you rob somebody of a sharp line drive and you're just like, do the Matumbo finger wag or any moments like that?
There are some plays that stick out. Like I said, I was at third base and a slapper was trying to pull something. I remember being in Alabama in Tuscaloosa, and it was one of their best players. One of the fastest players went on to be an All-American. And the next year they actually won the national championship. So, but it looked like a really tough play. Like the second that she chopped it, it looked like she had plenty of time, but I still threw her out, so you remember those kind of moments. Mm-hmm. I remember my freshman year, one of our seniors in the regionals, we eventually lost, but in the first game that we won, she hit a home run, and she was a very chill kind of swagger, like a base swag. Like she's a New Yorker, grew up loving Jeter, all that stuff. And didn't show a lot of emotion usually, but she was going nuts, when she hit the go-ahead home run. So you were those teammate moments. And then the biggest moment I probably remember is my senior year. I ended up being the first to do it. Yes, the only person who's done it, but I hit grand slams in back-to-back games in, one of our series against Oregon State, I want to say, and it was actually the same pitcher. So that was kind of rough for them, but same place, same everything. It was like the same replay basically. And then long after that, we actually shared a plane with Oregon State as we were going to postseason, just because you don't know we're going a few days before you have to be there with selection show. And I remember kind of like awkwardly walking by and just being like, This is a little awkward, but it was all right.
That's an Oregon State.
Yeah.
So do you guys get like ass chewings in softball like we do in football? Because I've seen they look really nice on TV, but some of these coaches look like, they can let it ride, a couple times. So, they look really nice. And they're like, when they do their interviews, they're like, we got to do this. And I think in the back of their mind, they're like, I'm going to, they want to choke somebody, so.
Oh,
like, how is the demeanor from a coach in softball, as compared to, any other sport? Is it kind of the same, or, are they a little bit nicer than they are to us?
If they are, it's marginally nicer. It might not be quite as crazy as football. Like I can't necessarily relate to football, but there are definitely moments for sure. I actually had a quote book with our coach's quotes on different things he said to us. Sometimes funny things, sometimes some of the stuff where it was, I remember him telling us he told somebody, like two people back to back, they were really good players, but they popped up, it's like, grab both your ears and pull your heads out of your asses, and you're like, okay, wow, that was in front of everyone, and that was kind of mild, but there's plenty of moments like that too. Yeah, of course. In the heat of the moment, like if you're a competitive person, how do you not like have a moment, so yes. And I remember my travel ball coach growing up too, he would yell at you in the same tone, whether he was giving you a compliment or getting on you. And you're like, oh, you had to listen to what he was saying, because you're like, wait, was that good or bad? I'm not really sure. So, but he was intense. He was really intense.
Yes, because I coached middle school baseball this year, and I came out of retirement because I gave it up a long time ago, and I realized really quickly that I can't say what I want to, because these are like 12, to 14-year-old kids, because I've been coaching varsity for forever, and it's really, really hard to be like. You have to kind of catch yourself before you say it. Normally, I let it fly, with my older kids, but like, y'all better be glad y'all are in middle school.
Mm-hmm.
It's very true.
Yeah, I've let it fly a few times too with the varsity guys, but I've never coached middle school baseball, so that would be an adjustment for me. But it's
definitely
it's interesting
for lack of a better term.
But he was the Bobby Cox of South Georgia middle school baseball. So don't get it twisted. Whatever he was doing was working.
And what makes it so bad, people say, boys and, girls and stuff are different, but girls take ass chillings a lot better than boys. They really do. No matter where it comes from.
Girls do a lot of things better than boys.
I'm like, I can say this to her and she's fine. If I say the same thing to him, like he's going, man, what you talking about? Like, yeah, she just took it. What's going on here?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Unfortunately, girls are a little more used to kind of being criticized, I think, like in a general sense, not just for sports. I mean, in a general sense, or at least scrutinized, I should say, a little bit more. Oh, I don't know if that has to do with it, but that's a maturity thing too, right? Like girls tend to mature more quickly than boys do. So when you're at that age, it's kind of natural.
Girls seem to let things roll off their back. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't even phase them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, there's some girls that will clap back. I mean, just like that, in a split second. I've seen that too.
Ones out here. I'm married. There's some moody ones out here.
Heck yeah. So, all right, Jenna, tell us about Bleav in softball. Give us the, when did you start Bleav in softball?
Yeah, I started it in February 2020. So it was a really exciting start to the season that year that obviously like a few weeks in was put to a grinding halt. And then I felt like everybody started starting podcasts after that. During COVID,
I came on board in June of 2020, and Israel joined me later on in September. But how did you find Bleav?
Actually, funny enough, there was a LinkedIn post where they were looking for hosts, like a job post. I used to work at LinkedIn, like separate from all the sports stuff. My first full-time job out of college was working at LinkedIn. And it was, his name was Carlton. So you might have known him at the time, but basically he just, they were looking for hosts, different sports, different teams, all that stuff. And I had a few ideas. One of them was obviously softball, of course, probably number one. And they were like, okay, sure, let's do it. And so that's sort of how it happened. But I did Zoom just like 2 weeks maybe before everyone else did, because I started the podcast like 2 weeks before the shutdown. But it's been a while though, a little over 3 years. This is the fourth season, softball season. Yeah.
Yeah, we're about to enter season 4 of football for Israel and I. So that's exciting. We that was a crazy journey there. I found the same thing with LinkedIn. I talked to Josh Kreider, actually, is who Nick Kreider and Josh Fisher.
Nick.
Yeah, Nick and Josh. I talked with them. A friend of mine who hosts Bleav in Badgers had a Vanderbilt show as well. Still does, but he doesn't really do much with it. He's really killing it with Bleav in Badgers. He kind of got me on board with that. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that. It's Bleav itself too. The network has come a long way since 2020 on.
We've partnered with Cumulus Media.
Yeah.
So that's
awesome.
exciting. Yeah. And we're like, the first time I saw that our show was on Sirius XM, I was like, I texted her. I was like, dude, we're moving on up like the Jeffersons here.
Yeah, Mama, I made it. Yeah.
I'm on Sirius XM. What more do I need?
Moving on up like the Jeffersons.
Yeah, exactly. I love it.
Well, before we let you go, where can we find you? Social media, all that stuff.
Yeah. So Bleav in Softball has Twitter and Instagram too. It's on YouTube, as well as the standard audio podcast platforms like Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. You can follow me on Twitter at Jenna Becerra 01 and on Instagram at Jenna Becerra too. And I'm available. Isn't it funny how athletes lots of times will have their jersey number in their handle? I haven't let that go since I first got a Twitter.
Guilty.
Yeah.
Guilty.
Not on Instagram, but Twitter,
I mean, you could see. You can see it right there.
So that's me too.
It's amazing.
Yeah. But we're all the same at some point. All us athletes. Yeah. So, well, Jenna, it was great having you on. We got to do this again sometime. Maybe sometime later this summer. Just recap the Women's College World Series. Just kind of unpack it all. Maybe we'll watch you on TV. Are you covering the Women's World Series? Are you?
I think I may be. Plans are still being finalized, but yes, I might be in Oklahoma City, and I'm even thinking about just going anyway. Even if I'm working it, I'm like, you know what, I might just go. So we'll see, but I should be there.
We hope to see you on TV. That's my goal for you. I want to see you on TV for the Women's College World Series in Oklahoma City. So hopefully the Dogs can win Game 2 and Game 3. Hopefully we can get out of Tallahassee with a series win and punch our ticket to Oklahoma City. And Jenna, it was great having you. Like I said, host of Bleav in Softball. You can find her also on the Pac-12 Network and with Stanford Athletics, covering the great sport of softball. So Jenna, have a great evening. If you make it out to Oklahoma City, have a great trip, and hopefully we'll see you on TV.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And yes, it's not done yet in Tallahassee. It is not done yet. I don't think I'm just going away quietly. So we'll see.
Bring out the bats. Bring out the bats on tomorrow night. So we are the Bleav in Georgia Dogs podcast on the Bleav Network, presented by betonline.ag. We thank Jenna for joining us. Israel, you know the drill. As always, until next time, go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Do you believe?